forgotten our Chief Director of the Journal of Creative Practices in Language, Learning and Teaching, CPLT UiTM Kedah. We have Dr. Azlin Ahmad Zawawi. And also to all lecturers, participants, and guests. We are grateful to Allah because with His bounty we can gather in this meaningful program. We're going to make this program not just a wonderful, but also a day full of learning and new experience. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all the distinguished guests and participants to the Effective Journal Reviewing and APA Referencing Workshop organized by the Journal of Creative Practices in Language Learning and Teaching, CPLT UiTM Kedah. We are all delightful and happy to have all of you here, and we hope you will learn a lot today. We have lined up for you to be fruitful and also engaging. Our respectable participants of this today's workshop, let me tell you a bit highlights of this program. Effective Journal Reviewing and APA Referencing Workshop that is organized by the Journal of Creative Practices in Language Learning and Teaching, CPLT UiTM Kedah. As we all know, writing and publishing is an important task of a lecturer, academician. So this includes the involvement of lecturers as evaluators of manuscripts in journals. However, there are lecturers who are less experienced in conducting article, manuscript evaluation, and there are also those who need assistance in writing and understanding in APA style. So therefore, the Journal of Creative Practices in Language and Teaching, CPLT, as the home ground journal of UiTM Kedah, is really glad and ready to train lecturers to become effective evaluators and writers. So that's why we are here today. So I hope everyone is enthusiastic, energetic to be with us until program ends. So ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our first speaker. We are going to start with our first workshop that will be conducted by Dr. Irham Ishak, our Deputy Rector of Students Affairs UiTM Kedah. He is a senior lecturer, English for academic purposes and English for specific purposes, Academy of Language Studies UiTM Kedah branch. And he is also under JCPLT Advisory Board member. So as we all know, Dr. Wan has been teaching at UiTM for more than 20 years, I believe, and has a lot of experiences in research. He's got many research grants and a list of publications where his research interest is in language or English for specific purposes, discourse and communication studies, and applied linguistics. And now, as we all know, that he is currently the Deputy Rector of Student Affairs, UiTM Kedah. So without further ado, I leave this platform to you, Dr. Wan, to continue the session. Please welcome Dr. Wan. Actually, Dr. Wan, you have about 1 hour, 30 minutes to lead this session. Over to you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Intan Shariza. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. And good morning. First of all, thank you to Dr. Azlin Ahmad Zawawi. Can you hear us, everyone?
Yes, Doctor. Yes,
okay.
yes. Clear, loud and clear.
Thank you to Dr. Azlin for inviting me to share a little bit of my experience here. And also thank you to Dr. Farina Muhammad Khalis, fellow colleagues from UiTM Kedah, and also colleagues from other universities. And I believe there are also participants from other countries as well. And to my fellow speaker, Haji Suciyati Sulaiman, welcome to UiTM Kedah program. We have our KPP, head of faculty here, and everyone. And this is something interesting. So actually, can I control the slide, please? Can I share from my side? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Dr. Yumi.
All right. So what we are going to look at is something that cares a lot of us, myself included. I suffered when I did my degree. I suffered when I did my master's. I only learned and understand referencing actually when I did my PhD. Thanks to the advancement of ICT, and it helps a lot. So I have a few questions for all of us. And question and statement. In-text citation is complicated. Do you agree? If you agree, you may want to type somewhere or you want to respond. Yeah? In-text citation is complicated. And second, there is a lot to learn and remember. There is a lot to learn and remember. I remember during my first introduction to referencing, we had to memorize, hafal. Yeah, when we had to memorize and hafal, that is something that I believe leave me with a lot of scars. Yeah? A lot of scars because I cannot remember. It is too complicated to remember. Okay, but today I'm going to share with you that we do not have to remember everything. Our life is easier now. And then my question, when should we prepare references? Yeah, Dr. Wano Faizah, when should we prepare our references? You want to respond, Dr. Wan Faizah?
Actually, is in the early research, and maybe can enhance in the end of the research.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a good strategy actually. Yeah, that's something that I share. And should we prepare our paper first? Like Madam Intan Shariza said, this is about CPLT and about journal. Should we prepare our paper first? Then we can find a journal to submit, yeah? Which I believe will relate to Hajah Suciyati's going to talk about. Anyone? Should we prepare our paper first? Then we can find a journal to submit? We have a lot of colleagues here. I will call names. Madam Irwana, please. Madam Irwana is not around. Let us call another name. Miss Murshida Mashar. Should we prepare our paper first? Then we can find a journal to submit?
I think yes, Doctor.
Yes. Should we prepare our paper first? And you say yes. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for your response. I will conduct this session interactively. It means I will ask you questions and you will respond. Okay, thank you. So, because this is about CPLT and we want to actually encourage our colleagues, our friends to publish. The answer is we should find a journal first. We should find a journal first. Where do we want to submit? And can you guess, agak-agak lah, CPLT accepts APA citation level berapa? At what level? Edition berapa? I'm not going to ask the CPLT board members, but potential potential writers, authors who want to submit to CPLT journal. APA version 6. Okay, APA version 6. Do you know why we should find a journal first? Because if we find a journal later, after we have finished our paper, we will be in a bit of a problem. Okay, Ms. Ho says it is in 7th edition, but it's still in CPLT. It is mentioned 6th edition. So we may want to check online. It is still in 6th edition. Thank you, Ms. Ho. The latest is 7th edition, which I will cover today as well. This is because I will tell you why later. Okay, let's go on to this one. This is the outline of presentation. What is citation? Common citation styles, narrative and parenthetical citations, and everything that we will cover. Okay, let us look at this. So what is citation? What is citation? So a citation identifies a book, periodical article, or other information resource. Periodical, penerbitan berkala. Periodical is penerbitan berkala. It can be newspaper, it can be magazine, it can be journal article. So it includes in penerbitan berkala, periodical article. A citation will include the basic pieces of information necessary to allow you to find the article again. Yeah? And the same information is used to create the list of references or bibliography you will put in the research paper. This is what I'm talking about, common citation styles. We have APA, MLA, Chicago, Turabian, and IEEE. This one is from the University of Pittsburgh. And Purdue, we have APA, MLA, Chicago, IEEE, AMA, and University of Reading, American Meteorological Society, AMS, APA, Chicago. Yeah, the list goes on. So if, for example, we prepare our paper using APA citation style, and then you and your team members or you yourself would like to submit to this journal because it is Q1 or because it is easy, but the requirement is MLA. We have to restructure everything. Or Chicago, I had one experience learning how to use Chicago, but only one time. But for that particular journal, for that particular conference, Chicago was required. So it is very important, or else there will be frustration, or else you will be finger pointing to your group members. Why didn't we check? If why we didn't we check, then it is okay. Why didn't you check? Then we will start to quarrel, which is not good, because our intention is to actually to make life easy for everyone. Yeah. So let me introduce you to this, but I believe most of us know. Okay, welcome Shida. Narrative and parenthetical citations. Yeah. So this is what we call as in-text citation, including both narrative and parenthetical citation. It is crucial. So narrative citation is when you write out the author's name as you write their quote or paraphrase their work. So let us look at this example. Instead, Grady et al. 2019 suggests that when children are read storybooks that represent characters from ethnic or racial groups other than their own, they may receive a wider array of emotion learning opportunities than when they are read storybooks with characters that represent only their own race or ethnicity. So this is one type of narrative citation. It is included in the sentence. In the sentence. However, parenthetical citation, ladies and gentlemen, is how you use the author date citation system. We look at the example. One study found that ethnicities of protagonists in children's fiction correlated with differences in types of emotions displayed by those characters. What is the difference between parenthetical citation and narrative citation? As we can see here, the author's name and date is put at the end of the statement of the sentence. This is a little bit of explanation, which later we'll also cover if we do literature review. If we do literature review, we use narrative citation if the writer wants to highlight the author. The focus here is the author. If the writer is making an argument about the author or highlighting what different authors argued about the same topic. So this is author-based. And then parenthetical citation is used when the writer wants to highlight the information. So we focus on information, right? So for example, foreign policy is this, and this by this author and this author. If the writer is making an overall point about the topic and the focus is on the argument rather than who made the argument, yeah? If the writer is using the same source multiple times throughout the paragraph, the writer might choose to vary the different methods to improve readability and add sentence variety. Okay, so this is very important also. In sum, narrative and parenthetical citations are equally important. And when and how you use them depends on your specific goal in the paragraph. So it goes back to us. What is our purpose? Yeah? Using narrative or parenthetical citation can stem from a conscious choice to focus on the author or information. But it can also stem from an aesthetic choice to improve readability. So we have to vary our way. Yeah? So this is APA citation. Yeah? APA citation. What is this about? Now this one we can read. So we move on to look at in-text citation rules. If we have one author, narrative style, we begin with according to Svanevik 2019, and then we quote. And then parenthetical style, towards the end, we put his name or her name. Two authors, narrative style, Brown and Levinson. If it is in the sentence, in the paragraph, Brown and Levinson, A and D, argued that. Parenthetical style, Brown and Levinson, without A and D. Yeah, it matters. Yeah, it matters. There is a difference. Three or more authors, narrative style at all, parenthetical style at all. So that's why I say always spell out the word "and" in narrative citation. So we know the difference now, right? The narrative citation as well as the parenthetical citation. That's why I put red for everyone to see the difference here and also here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there are cases where there are no author's name, but corporate authors. Majlis Perbandaran Sungai Petani, Pejabat Kesihatan Daerah, for example, Ministry of Higher Education. First citation in text, narrative style, according to the National Heart, Lung and Blood Institute, in bracket NHLBI 2017. The first citation, parenthetical citation. Okay. We put here. Because why do we put this? Second citation in text, we do not repeat the full name again. We simply use its abbreviated version. Okay. So that also helps in word count. Yeah? So for example, CPLT requires between 3,000 to 8,000 words. If we keep repeating according to the National Heart, Lung and Blood Institute, that will cause us to write more than the required number of words. Okay, we go on to look at special cases, which is very interesting. If the first authors of multiple references share the same surname but have different initials. Okay, all of you are Malaysian now, right? Do we have participants from other countries as well? Okay, for the time being, we have Malaysians and we just have Haji Suciyati. Malays. This is interesting because number one Irham Ishak, my name. One is first name. According to APA style, one is first name, middle name is Irham, surname is Ishak. Alhamdulillah, it is quite easy to follow. But what about Chinese name? Yeah. It's quite different. But for the time being, let us look at this one first. We have Stuart here, Stuart and Free, and then Stuart here. So we include initials so that we know the difference. This one we are talking about J.R. Stuart, and this one is M. Stuart, Michael Stuart. So we are referring to two different authors in two different publications. Not just for us to cite, actually. When we read now, when we read journal articles and we have this kind of citation, oh, now we know that we are talking about two different authors rather than the same author. Okay. If the first authors of multiple references share the same surname and the same initials, cite the works in the standard author date format. Okay, so this one is simple. We follow the rules. That's why we say we don't have to memorize. If you have this note later, we can simply refer to again. Yeah. If multiple authors within a single reference share the same surname, the initials are not needed in the in-text citation. In-text citation, parenthetical or narrative, Chen and Chen, 2018. There's no need for initial. Okay. Okay, we move on. For two or more works by the same author in the same year, use lowercase letters A, B, C with the year. The letters indicate the alphabetical order of the titles of the work. For example, this one is Janet Holmes, 2011A, found that. And then another one, Holmes, 2011B, reported that. Why do we use A here? It is not about date of publication, but alphabetical order of the titles. L and then W. So far, so good. Okay. Next, when citing multiple works by the same author within the same parenthesis, arrange the works chronologically separated by a comma. Okay, chronologically. So far, so good. Okay. Now, we move on to look at the question tadi, yang nombor 3 tu. Should we prepare first? Yeah, should we prepare along the way? Dr. Wan Faizal answered that we should prepare it first. I agree, we must prepare it progressively along the way. I learned the hard way, I learned the hard way when I believe that, oh, no worries. In-text citation, reference list, and so on, nanti habis baru buat. When I finish everything, then I will do. But it turned out this one took me 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks to rearrange everything, to find everything. Alhamdulillah, now we have what? We have sources, online sources, that we can cross-check. But kalau dulu, then it's quite difficult. I remember typing in hotel rooms. I remember typing while my wife was driving from Kedah to KL, searching for reference list, check this, check that, here and there. Sleepless night, cannot sleep, because the supervisor would like to see everything. So if we work progressively, we finish today and we check, we include everything in the reference list, life will be much easier. Yeah. So we have now, for unknown authors, of course we have authors, but they do not include their name. Yeah, Dr. Dahlia, I agree with you. For work with an unknown author, include the title and year of publication in the in-text citation. If the title of the work is italicized in the reference list, also italicize the title in the text citation. So, let us look at the example. Book with no author, The Future of Entrepreneurship, 2018. Magazine article with no author, the title, Towards a Psychology of Collective Memory. Okay. And then you will ask me question, boleh tak pakai anonymous? Right? Can we use anonymous? Tak boleh. Okay? Tak boleh. We cannot use anonymous. Ada situasi yang boleh pakai anonymous. Only in some situations we can use anonymous. I will tell you later. When citing 2 or more words, order them alphabetically using a semicolon to separate them. Sarangi, Toro, S, T, okay? If the date of publication is missing, write ND or abbreviation or no date. For example, higher tobacco outlet density is associated with a higher likelihood of smoking initiation by minors and adults. You see, we have no date here. If the source is cited in another source, record the source that you read. And ladies and gentlemen, this one is also very important. If you are supervisors for your PhD students, please advise your students not to cite like this. For example, Fong's 2003 study, as cited in Bertram 2009, found that older students' memory can be as good as that of young people. But this depends on how memory is tested. Please, PhD students, do not do this. There have been cases where external examiners ask the student to find the original source. Ada yang kena buat balik, they have to redo and so on. So we try to find real study from phones. And I believe now with the advancement of ICT, we can do that. We can do that. So what we have to do is we have to refer to, because we refer to this one. We do not refer to this one. So in the citation, in the reference, Bertram, 2009. Okay, because we do not read from the original source. Okay, this is anonymous author. If the author is missing, like I mentioned just now, do not use anonymous as the author unless the work is actually signed anonymous. If the work is signed anonymous, use anonymous in the reference and the in-text citation. So that's why we have here anonymous 2017, stories from my time as a spy, Bond Publishers, for example. It is allowed if it is stated like that. Yeah. Interview, personal communication. Macam mana pula when we have personal communication, qualitative research. For example, we have letters, memos, email, electronic bulletin boards, personal interviews, telephone conversations. In such cases, text should be cited. Boleh cite, we can cite, but do not include in the reference list because the information is not recoverable. Okay, you can include in your essay, you can include in your report, but do not need to include in reference. Narrative style, okay. Personal communication. You know why? This is because personal communication is between the author and the person he or she interviewed. But we cannot find the information elsewhere online. So we cannot recover that, and other authors cannot refer to that. Okay, so that's the personal communication. There will be a lot. Okay, let us look at sample of in-text citations and references. Let us call someone to. We have Miss Nurfamiza Tarsik. Are you here?
I'm here.
Okay, can you read this, please?
Sample in-text citation reference, Doctor.
Yes, please.
Okay, include an in-text citation when you refer to, summarize, paraphrase, or quote from another source. For every in-text citation in your paper, there must be a corresponding in your reference list. Example, paragraph with in-text citation. A few researchers in the linguistic field have developed training programs designed to improve native speakers' ability to understand accented speech by Derwin et al. 2002 and Thomas 2004. Their training techniques are based on the research described above, indicating that comprehension improved with exposure to non-native speech. By Derwin et al. 2002 conducted their training with students preparing to be social workers, but not that other professionals who work with non-native speakers could benefit from similar program.
Okay, Ms. Nurfamiza, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, blue color. Blue color, example in paragraph. And then blue color in references. Whatever is quoted in in-text citation here must reflect in the references. So far, so good? Yeah, all right. there are cases where examiners and also CPLT reviewers senang aja nak check, sejam dah nak check whether the paper is good or not. Look at the reference list. And Professor Supian, UKM, also said this in his posting. To check whether a journal article is good or not, whether the thesis is good or not, just look at the first paragraph, the first page, and then turn to reference list. If it is in order, you know that the paper is prepared well. Okay, so that's also something for you. This is also a strategy that we must master. And as a CPLT board advisor, I'm telling you this. I'm telling you, and I believe Dr. Azlin will also have fewer headache in when we look at journal articles that we have to process. Yeah. Okay. This is good. And this is good. Let me tell you my own experience. Finding reference. Dah cite dah dalam thesis ni. Dah cite dah dalam thesis. Cari buku tak jumpa. I have cited this in my thesis, but I could not find this book. Where? Citation source, Google Scholar. This is from Google Scholar. Gumpertz, John J. Gumpertz, 2009. The Speech Community, Linguistic Anthropology, Reader 166. So when we found something like this from Google, do we question its reliability? Do we accept this bulat-bulat? In general, we accept bulat-bulat. In general, we accept it. But when we come to this workshop, you will know something. Not everything dalam Google Scholar, not everything in Google Scholar, even in citation machine, APA generator and so on, they are all not correct. So what do we do? This is the actual book. The book is titled Linguistic Anthropology. Yeah? Second edition by Duranti. And John J. Gumpertz is a contributor in this book. Not the original author of the whole book. And if you know, this is an edited book. So when it is an edited book, there is a difference. So this is if we want to cite a book. But if you want to have an edited book, element for chapter in the book, this is something that we must know. And this is in blue color. After we have cited, we must check whether it is a book, whether it is a chapter of a book, because it is different in how we list the source in the references. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, do not believe everything that you found even on Google Scholar. You need to check. Okay. So next we move on. Yeah, references. Now we have references. References, the last page. So kalau last page, buat last kali lah. That's what I practice myself. And I learned the hard way. Dr. Dahlia, we shared the same experience, I believe. We learned the hard way. So let's go on. We need to give credit and so on. Okay, this is from Ms. Ho, rules for reference list. This one you will read on your own. because I have given this to Dr. Azlin, and all citations in your text must appear in your reference list and so on. This is good. Omit abbreviations such as PhD, titles. I agree with you, Dr. Dahlia. Yeah. So when we have that kind of experience, we want to share with our friends here, not to repeat our mistakes. So that's something that we learn. During our time, we do not have that. Okay. So we move on to look at this one. This is, okay, let us look at this and this one. References. This is something that we must know, so that even when you want to use citation machine, APA, citation generator, and so on, we know what to include, what to put here and there. Last name, first initial, middle initial, publication date, title of article, subtitle of article, title of periodical in italic here, volume, page range, and then DOI. Good, Miss Ho. Thank you very much. I agree with you. Progressively, we ask our students to do that. Include a DOI if it is provided for both print and electronic articles. Yeah. So this is for articles, journal, magazine, newspaper. Ada beza juga. There is a difference. Yeah. This is periodicals, penerbitan berkala. Yeah. So this is something. Magazine and newspaper kena ada sampai date and month. Journal only year. Okay. Okay, this one. Only provide an issue number if each issue's pagination starts at page 1. Okay. To find out if the pagination continues from issue to issue, check the page numbers. High page numbers indicate continuous pagination. If you are still not sure, go to journal's homepage. Okay, so this one that I highlighted just now. Journal articles only need the year. Magazine, newspaper, and newsletter articles require the year and exact date. That's why when we read now, we will understand better. Something into our paper. We will read first journal paper article. We can make sorry, how long do I have, Miss Intan?
We have until 10:30, Dr. Wan.
Testing. Miss Intan, 10:30. All right, good.
10:30, yeah.
Thank you. We look 10:30. Okay. We look at books, including e-books and reference book. We have last name, first after this will show you the difference between version 6. Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me?
Yes, doktor, boleh. Tadi breaking tadi. Ini okey dah.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, okay. I'm using my handphone now because my laptop ni internet dekat dia putus. Okay, books, books, including e-books and reference book. Okay, we have book here, last name, initial, and everything. Yeah. So this one, you keep a copy of this note so that it will be easier for you to refer to later. Okay, online sources, last name, first initial. This one, again, like I mentioned to you, there is no need for us to actually memorize everything. But what we need is a note that for us to refer to and to understand what is the meaning of this and of that. Media. Now we can also refer to movie. We can cite movie, ladies and gentlemen. Producer name. Producer name. Okay. Siapa producer? For example, we have Martin Scorsese. We have Malaysian Roshamno. Yeah, we can do that. It is not just books. Okay. Title of film. Okay, we have title of film and everything. Technical and research reports. Okay, technical and research reports. Last name, first initial, middle initial, year, title of report in italic. Yeah. Format references for reports, similarly to how you format references for books. If the report has a number, report number, contract number, etc., include it in parentheses after the title and before the period. Okay, I will move back to my laptop. Okay, sorry. Thank you for understanding the situation. Okay, technical research report is about books. Yeah. Again, we continue. If you access a report online, provide a retrieval statement instead of a location and publisher. A retrieval statement. Include the name of the publisher in the retrieval statement unless the publisher is the same as the author. Okay, so this one is where we retrieve. Let me try to make it full, whether I can actually move. It doesn't move, so I have to stop sharing. Okay, now we move on to the next one. That is references. The list yang panjang, the long, course material. Course material. Course material means lecturer's note, and everything that we provide for our students. John Doe, we call it personal communication course material. Okay, you can keep this so that it will be easier for you to check. Conference, meeting, and symposium materials. Conference, meeting, and symposium materials. We can also cite and put there. Title of paper or poster. So paper or poster presented at the meeting of organization where the paper was presented. This one is title of session if it is in symposium. Okay, and this is the proceeding. And now I believe many conferences are also publishing papers in conference proceeding. And with the present situation, conference proceedings are published online. And we can put this. Let's move on. Conference, meeting, and symposiums, unpublished paper or poster sessions should follow the first example above yang tadi lah. Yeah. Unpublished symposia or meeting session should follow the second example, the one that I showed just now. Published conference proceedings in book format should follow other book references. Published conference proceedings are published in a regular series follow the article format. Yeah, article. So it is a publication, periodical. Interview. Okay, this is interview. This is keep in mind that the reference list is designed to provide access to retrievable sources. Kalau yang boleh diambil balik lah. A personal communication is cited in text only. Kalau tak boleh retrievable, if we cannot retrieve, other people cannot retrieve the interview, it is only in text. But this is ethics. If you want to make it public, the interview and everything, we must obtain consent from the interviewees and so on. If we do not obtain consent, it is not right for you to make public the interviews and everything. Yeah, because in the interview, we have asked the interviewees to sign informed consent statement, and we promise that we will only use this for this particular project, this particular thesis, and so on. But if we want to make our findings or the names of everything public, we must ask again permission. That is also very important. Oh, this is one also interesting thing. There was one journal which published a study in Nigeria, haggling process in Nigeria, haggling process of in the meat market in Nigeria. Tawar-menawar membeli daging di market di Nigeria, di Lagos, Nigeria. And the journal accepted the reasoning of the author. How? They collected information from bargaining process. But it is stated there, the information, the transaction in the bargaining transaction, tawar-menawar, it is stated as methodology that the researcher record secara diam-diam without acknowledging. And it is interesting because it is accepted by that journal. Since it is very difficult to obtain permission, and the author, the researcher stated that I secretly recorded the transaction, but it was declared clearly in his essay, and it is accepted. But please do not do that because now we have ethics committee. Even if you want to do that, we must go through the ethics committee first. Yeah, or else nanti we have a lot of data and so on, but we cannot use. That will be very, very problematic. Okay. Legal materials. These are basic examples for citing legal materials. For more information, okay. Common abbreviation, we have to know this, especially FSPPP. We can refer to more material. So this is the reference. Okay, now we look at the 7th edition APA citations, notable changes. Publisher location is not included. Ladies and gentlemen, there have been many cases where I myself practice copy directly from other sources. But now what we must remember is that from version 6 to version 7, when we want to copy the reference list of other authors, we at least must know that dia pakai apa ni? What did he use? Version APA version 6 or version 7? Edition 6 or edition 7? Whether the particular author uses Chicago or MLA. Because we want to make sure that we ourselves know that what we are doing, or else nanti journal reviewer says, please check your reference list. It is not according to APA citation. Mana boleh the journal reviewer ni tak tahu ni. This is because we ourselves must educate of ourselves of the different style, APA citation, MLA citation, there ada perbezaan. There are differences that when we see it is, there will be differences. Yeah? So there is no more New York. Yeah? So straight away, publisher not included. The in-text citation for works with 3 or more authors is now shortened right from the first citation. You include the first author's name and at all. So previously, Taylor, Kotler, Johnson and Parker, 2018, but now Taylor et al., 2018. Okay. Surnames and initials for up to 20 authors instead of 7 should be provided in the reference entry. Okay. So we can go up to 20 people. If you have your papers, 10 people, for example, every name must be mentioned there. Okay. DOIs are formatted the same as URLs. The label DOI is no longer necessary. Okay. So there is no need to put DOI anymore. URLs are no longer preceded by retrieve from unless a retrieval date is needed. The website 9 is included unless it is the same author. So Walker A 2019, there is no need for retrieve from, but we put the website, BBC News. Okay. For ebooks, the format, platform or device, Kindle is no longer included in the reference and the publisher is included. whether it is Kindle version or not, but the name of the publisher. Okay. You can refer to this. It will be very useful for everyone. Okay. Now we have media type. We can include this as author. Film director is included as the author. TV series, executive producer or producers are included. And we have a lot, yeah. We have a lot. For example, in language studies, students have examined, investigated movies, TV series. For example, when it comes to communication language, Henry Golding acted in what movie? Madam Etty Harniza, Henry Golding acted in what movie? About some rich people in Singapore. Madam Etty? Mr. Aiman Hakim. All right, Dr. Azlin, correct. Crazy Rich Asians. In language study, we look at code switching, code mixing. Yeah, code means language. The study of using different languages in communication. Yeah, and then we have also podcast episode, host of episode, webinar instructor, online streaming video, person or group who uploaded the video as the author. And suddenly we also know that we have to respect photographer. They are the author. We can include that. And 7th edition of APA also, we try to use inclusive and bias-free language. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why we say lost in translation. Kita tak nampak sangat perbezaan dalam translation ni, sama aja bunyi je. But when it comes to the context of English language, it means something. We want to reduce bias around topics such as gender, age, disability. Orang Malaysia ada 2 aja gender, lelaki perempuan. Senang. But not in other countries. Yeah? And then age pun sensitive issue. That's why we try not to offend other people. People with disability. Okay, like Malaysia lah. Dulu ada orang cacat, now orang kelainan upaya. We choose the words nicely so that we do not want to offend people. Okay, we respect that. Yeah. Racial and ethnic identity. Also, we have to respect that. And sexual orientation. Heterosexual, homosexual, asexual, pansexual. We have to respect all that. As well as being sensitive to labels and describing individuals at the appropriate level of specificity. So let's look at this. Use singular they rather than he or she. A researcher's career depends on how often he is cited. But now, a researcher's career depends on how often they are cited. When it comes to grammar, myself included, Ms. Ho and Ms. Noizati here, we say that this is wrong because singular and plural. But in terms of present situation, a researcher's career depends on how often they are cited, so that we don't have to refer to any gender. Each examiner submitted his or her assessment. Each examiner submitted their assessment. And of course, if you do he or his or her in the Malaysian context, I believe even the language editor will still accept. Yeah, but I'm just showing you how they have progressed in terms of using terminology, using pronoun that is more gender neutral. Okay, gender neutral. Okay, let's move on. Be sensitive to. All right, Ms. Ho suggested the examiners make it plural, both situation plural. Thank you, Ms. Ho. Yeah, we can also do that. We move on to be sensitive to labels, the poor, people living in poverty. We do not say the poor. Tapi kalau translate dalam bahasa, the poor is orang miskin. So sometimes it is more in English. Yeah? Transsexuals, we have to use transgender people. In our context, we cannot actually see what is this. But later, if you want to submit to some journals in Northern America or in UK or in Europe, they may say that please use gender specific or genderless and so on. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it is advisable if you check this term or you hire native speakers of English to check at the present situation that this is what and what. Because if we see here, we translate to Malay, it doesn't carry the weight like what it is in English. Appropriate level of specificity. Over 65, people age 65 to 75. So this is what we want to be specific. Certain age group. Over 65 can be 75, 76. So specific group, range 65 to 75. Asian participants, still very broad. That will include Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia. So focus, Vietnamese, Cambodian, and Thai participants only. Okay. The same way when we say this study was conducted in the northern states of Malaysia. The northern states of Malaysia. So we must be specific when we want to report. Perlis, Kedah, and Penang, for example. Okay, now we move on to mechanics, punctuation. Punctuation, full stop, comma, exclamation mark, and everything. Punctuation marks signal the structure of a text, showing where each idea begins and ends and how they relate to one another. Some of the most common grammatical mistakes can be fixed by simply adding, removing, or moving punctuation mark. Yeah? Learn bila nak pakai comma, when to use commas, and when to use a colon and semicolon in a more appropriate choice. Dashes and hyphens look similar, but they have different function. Okay? This one, from time to time, we have to, again, relearn, try to remember. Capitalization. Okay? Check everything, capitalization. Kuang-kuang tahulah nak hijab kangar perlis K itu kena capital. Kangar perlis K and P capital. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we have situations where we are more familiar with social media text rather than academic text. That's why we copy everything and we do not even put capitalization properly. Yeah, so that is something. Bukannya susah pun. Most of us here, majority of us here are from a different generation before social media, and this one not that problematic to all of you. But we also have new generation students, new generation group of audience, which Sometimes they cannot differentiate, or they feel that, oh, it is okay, it is accepted, but it is not that way. Yeah, it is not accepted, especially in academic writing. Yang mana perlu huruf besar, which one that you have to capitalize, you must capitalize. When you have to comma, you have to put comma. Yeah? It carries meaning. Yeah? It carries meaning, and without that punctuation, meaning tu akan hilang maksud dia. Yeah? Let me type this to you. Dalam chat box. Semua orang refer to chat box. Can you read that? Let us call someone to read that. Miss Azrin Delilah. Welcome. Can you read that in the chat box? FSPPP student ni, my student, good student. Azrin? We call Dr. Jun lah, Dr. Jun. Please, Dr. Jun. Not here. Let us call Dr. Dahlia, please. Oh, okay. Let us call Mr. Firdaus Ramli.
Doctor, it's okay. Let me read for you.
Okay, please.
Okay. Capitalization in academic
Bukan ni. No, dalam chat box, dan chat box.
A woman.
Yeah, a woman.
Without her man tu.
Let me try.
Please.
Sasya,
Yeah, Sas.
a woman without her man is nothing.
Okay.
Apa maksud dia tu?
Apa maksud dia tu? Kalau boleh, if we can conclude this, tak payah hajak dah capitalization ni. Nak tunjuk tu, the message is clear. Okay, Stazilah. Kita minta Miss Izzati lah. Senang, dia lecturer bahasa Inggeris.
Yes, what do I do? Rewrite the sentence, is it?
Yeah, please do that. Please do that and read. A woman needs a man. Hajah Suciyati says, a woman without her man is nothing. A woman without her man is nothing. Okay. A woman without her man is nothing. Alright. So, thank you very much. Betul lah tu. It means macam-macam. Let me read again. First, without any comma, full stop, and so on. A woman without her man is nothing. Okay. And then a woman without her man, comma, is nothing. So means perempuan, a woman without her man is nothing. And then again, if we use the correct punctuation, the message is also clear. Like Hajah says, a woman without her man is nothing. You see, So this is where punctuation plays very important role in the message that you are trying to send. In spoken language, we can use intonation to stress what we want to highlight. But in writing, we have our punctuation in order to drive the message. Dr. Dahlia says, a woman needs a man. Okay. And then Hajah says, a woman without her, man is nothing. Okay. Izzati says, a woman, full stop, without her, man is nothing. Dr. Azlin says, a woman, comma, without her, man is nothing. Okay, Azrin says, man and woman are complementary to each other. Okay, ini kita faham. But right now, what we are trying to teach here, like that he says, so that is something very interesting. Yeah. And then capitalization. So in conclusion, we come to our conclusion now. Yeah. Investigate the journal requirement before attempting to write and submit articles. Identify specific citation style required by the journal. And though authors usually leave in-text citation and references as the last process, it actually saves time. And if you do it as the paper progresses. And like myself, Dr. Dahlia and a few others, we have learned the hard way. Nak tarik rambut ada, nak counting ada, nak makan burger banyak ada, stress. Sebab nak buat in-text citation and also references. Nak cari balik susah. Okay. So with that, I end my session. I would like to thank again Dr. Azlin, Dr. Farina, Hajah Suciyati, and all the participants of today's workshop. I hope that this workshop will benefit all of you and me, myself included. Thank you very much. We go back to Madam Intan. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam, Dr. Wan. Thank you very much, Dr. Wan, for giving us a great talk on APA style. Now it's actually moving forward to our second session. All right, we have our second speaker. The second session, the second workshop is actually on effective journal reviewing workshop by Hajah Suciyati Haji Sulaiman, a Deputy Director, Language Center, Universiti Brunei, Darussalam. Hajah Suciyati has been teaching at the Language Center, Universiti Brunei, Darussalam for more than 10 years. And she is currently the Deputy Director of the Center, where her role is designing and coordinating language programs for the UBD community, government, and private agencies in Brunei, as well as international institutions. Apart from teaching, Hajah Suciyati is also involved in various editorial services, including an interpreter for various agencies, such as the Language and Literacy Bureau and the banking industry in Brunei. So without further ado, I leave this platform to Hajah Suciyati to continue with this session. Please welcome Hajah Suciyati. Over to you.
Thank you. Can hear me, right? Assalamualaikum, and a very good morning to everyone, and especially to CPLT committee members, Dr. Azlin especially. Thank you for the invitation. And thank you as well, Dr. Wan. That was a very enlightening session, and I think more of a refresher course for me. Thank you so much for the referencing. I would agree, and I mentioned just now, I do agree how complicated APA referencing workshop is, and having having our students to actually know this for one semester, it's rather impossible. And as you mentioned, it's really a struggle even towards degree, masters, and up to PhD. I think even writing our own papers, we still have to refresh our minds. And APA is not also making it simple for us because they keep on changing. So as of now, even they've come up with a 7th edition. So I don't know how we're going to overcome this, but it's just a matter of a learning experience. We have to relearn and just repolish ourselves. Anyway, I think I'd like to go on. I was hoping for a break since it's not yet 10:30, but I think we'll just go ahead with it. And I think, can I share my screen? Can I just share my screen straight away?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so all right, okay. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am quite honored and privileged to be invited to speak on the effective journal reviewing, and that was invited by Dr. Azlin. So again, I thank you very much. And I also would like to take this opportunity to thank JCPLT for nominating myself as the advisory board member. And it has been I guess this has been a delight and a privilege, of course, to be reviewing some of the papers that have been submitted in the CPLT, and I do enjoy that experience and journey. So without further ado, now, I think everyone is very, very familiar with journals, how the processes are, and about how important reviewing is. So perhaps there are even stereotypes on reviewed journals and how being reviewed can be intimidating to one. And I think I do speak and represent myself in this as well. Reviewing and submitting papers to the journals can be intimidating and daunting for me, especially because it's just that part of reviewing, I guess, that word reviewing. So it feels like you are being judged or something, assessed, doing your PhD again or submitting an assignment again. So as you all know, most reviewed journals, most journals are reviewed, and we do need to know why they do that. Yeah, it's not a matter of you being judged or being assessed. There are reasons why editors, editorial boards require people to review papers before they are published. Okay. So as I mentioned, a lot of journals are being are peer reviewed or reviewed in other processes. And of course, that gives them credibility and strengthen up their reputation. Okay, so I'll go through about 5 contents on the workshop for this morning. So looking at what is meant by reviewing and the importance of it, why one should review. So if someone invited you to become a reviewer, don't straight away reject it. Have a think about it, and perhaps I'll share a little bit on why you should become a reviewer, what's in it for you. And then there are these 5 R's of reviewing. So the behavioral that have been identified to become an effective reviewer or reviewing efficiently. And then of course, just sharing with you the reviewing process to those who have not been as a reviewer, so you don't know the process as a reviewer. And then of course, I will end with tips of reviewing effectively in my capability. So I'm sure there are more tips that others can share, but these are the ones that I have found to work and quite simple and straightforward. All right, so why is reviewing so important? Now, of course, reviewing in itself and to the matter in itself. It improves the quality of research articles overall because it's going to be published. So it is more, it's like writing, well, in any writing really, you need to make sure that your writing is clear, concise, without any ambiguity. It's very reader friendly, and what you have in mind is set out there, and that's how it is understood by your readers. Okay, so and that helps, because when you're just writing on your own, you're like in your own bubble, in your own world, and everything seems to make sense to you. But once someone else reads it, it's like, what is this you're writing? All right, so with a different eye, it actually helps. So I think being an editor myself, it really helps. So there is a difference there between a writer and an editor. So you kind of see two different perspectives on that. Okay. So of course, it ensures the study, as a reviewer for a journal mainly, it ensures the study is original, the research in itself is valid, and it gives some sort of importance in the academic world. So either through the journal or you know, through your research development of your field. Okay. And of course, reviewers are there because they have to improve the manuscript before publishing. So from the fine details of checking typos, checking grammatical issues, you know, all those, to the point where your writing is able to be understood easily, and the layout of it is appropriate, and so on. Okay, so of course, different journals probably will have different criterias or styles they are looking for. Okay, so I've gathered some where they've identified what high quality review is, and in the perspective of the editor, and as well as the receiving end, which is the writer or the researcher themselves. So they find these kind of reviewers traits to be of high quality traits of review. So reviewers who provide thoughtful feedback, seems to help not only the editor but the author and themselves. And then they provide constructive comments about potential fixable concerns as well. So and then they also provide assistance in avoiding any fatal flaws. Now, fatal flaws is quite an issue when it comes to publishing in journals, because fatal flaws, perhaps looking at the reliability and validity of their research. So if that gives a red flag, then the reviewer doesn't just reject it and say, oh, this research paper has a lot of flaws, we cannot fix it. So in a way, a reviewer should help or should provide assistance on how to better improve that paper in itself. And of course, the reviewer provides advice to better position and communicate the research. So perhaps some restructuring is probably needed. Okay, so you may suggest restructuring on how to communicate your research better, so it's better understandable to others. And also that it ensures the research is within the expert domain of the journal. So, but usually the editors themselves will filter this out first. So whether the paper you've submitted is within the theme or within the objective of the journal. So if it is, then they would move forward to the reviewers. But if it's not, then, or maybe there are hints of it where you just need to further develop it. That's where the reviewer will come in, where they will give further advice on how they can perhaps suggest any alterations in their methodology or alterations in their discussions for it to fit into that journal. All right, so these are what was identified as high quality traits, okay, of the reviewers. So from the editor's perspective as well as the author themselves. So what does thoughtful feedback and constructive comments mean? So it means that the reviewer is being objective, looking at or focusing only on the paper in itself and the research, and have that intention of helping and to improve. And a reviewer should ignore your personal preferences. So even though you feel like, oh, this paper is supposed to be Times New Roman, or it should be formatted like this, or if it were me, I would write it like this, you know, those kinds. So those personal preferences should be avoided as a reviewer. You should only focus on how to help or better improve the paper or this research in itself. And a reviewer is not supposed to criticize. You are supposed to suggest multiple possible options. So it's not like you're telling them, please change this. This is not good. So those kind of comments are not thoughtful and they're not constructive. So in its meaning in itself, being constructive is for you to help construct and build improvement in the paper in itself. And you're giving suggestions on hints how they can find a solution or to overcome it. So perhaps giving diplomatically hints of perhaps it should be this, or asking them questions to better understand. So sometimes when you're reading, you may not understand it and you try to change it to the way you have understood. So instead of that, perhaps you would like to question them again, thinking, what is it that you're trying to relay here? What is it that you're trying to convey, so that we can help you further, okay? As opposed to just telling them, this is what I understood and this is how it's supposed to be written, okay? Moving on to why should you review? So, and of course, a lot of literature have identified reviewing can actually improve one's work and your career. So in an academic world, you can improve one's work, your writing, perhaps your research, and of course, excel in your career. And so what do I gain from reviewing? So if I am invited as a reviewer, what is it in it for me, apart from me spending so much time reading? I have committed to so many work. Why do I have this additional work? Okay, so there's actually a lot of benefits from reviewing a paper, and also from personal experience. I actually enjoy it. So it does, for a reviewer, it does enhances one's critical thinking. So when you're reading a lot of people's paper, it does give you critical thinking, and it widens as well how you think. So it's and everyone, I guess, you have your own personal style, personal way of expressing oneself. So it gives you a lot of perspectives, I find, personally. So from one, this is how they write, this is how they explain. So it was quite enlightening for that. And of course, with the reviewing, it does contribute in moving your field forward. So it does help you to gather a lot of your field, and it helps to, I guess, how do you say? I guess it really improves, and you are able to gather as many authors in your field, and you probably would like to suggest to look at this area and then that area. So it just improves or enlarge the scope of your field even, okay, and advances in your field. It is, of course, a learning experience, I find. So it just, you know, reviewing once, it doesn't really help. So after a while, when you get some feedback as well, and see the outcome of your review, you kind of learn from it. So not only that, you also, in a way, you're collecting data. You're seeing that, oh, I like how this person is writing and it gives this effect to a reader, maybe I would like to try that in my own writing. So in a way, it does improve how you are doing research and your being an academic as well. And of course, it improves your writing because you see all the ranges of writing skills and writing styles. So when you say, oh, I like how they do that, yeah, I like their strategy in doing this, maybe I can try in my own writing. So it does improve writing. And then you mentally note while you're reading others, you mentally note like, oh, this is good style, or maybe this is not so good of a style. There are ways that we can improve. So in a way, you are taking mental notes to improve your writing. And of course, it enhances career opportunities. So from reviewing, being a reviewer, it's good that people acknowledge your expertise, acknowledge your skills in reviewing, your language skills even. So so if editors like your responses and authors are giving you good feedback, or rather giving the editors good feedback, how they like their paper being reviewed. Of course, the editorial board will keep inviting you and then perhaps even making you a member of the editorial board. And then being a member, you can have a position. So even not only as an advisor member, become an editor. So it really helps boost your career and reputation, whereby your skills and your research and your expert field is being validated and recognized. So, and that's also good. And I think in institutions as well, if you are one of the editorial board member, that enlightens up or improves your reputation as an academic. So that, especially in UBD, so if you are, you gain points in your CV when you are one of the editorial board or an editor in your in a journal. Now, reviewing behavior. So I found a literature by Griffin and Bazak where they've compiled various literature and they have identified 5 R's of reviewing behavior and for a reviewer. Okay? So they find these behavior in a reviewer quite helpful, not only for editorial, making their editorial work easier, and also for the authors. So helping the authors to develop further their skills and to encourage them to submit more papers. And of course, publish their own papers. So the 5 R's that were identified were roles, responsibilities, responses, reactions, and respect. So moving to roles first, as a reviewer, your role is to become an unbiased advisor. Okay, so as I mentioned, the focus there is the paper, regardless of who wrote it. Okay, you are just looking into how you can better improve the paper and how can you better make it, I guess, publishable, quality. Okay, and you act as a reviewer, you act as a consultant. You don't act as a judge, you don't act as an assessor, you consult them, you help them. Yeah, and the help is there to improve the manuscript, and also not only that, you have that intention of helping the author evolve as an academic as well, right? So even though you are of an expert field with the position of, say, professor, senior professor, I guess it should be in your heart to help others, especially within your community, within your university, to help these developing researchers or junior researchers to, I guess, to develop their career as an academic. Okay? And also one role that perhaps editors really rely on reviewers are being an enforcer. So being enforcer, not so much to become like a police, a plagiarism police or something, but more towards helping the editors to identify any fatal flaws. So because your work is going to be published, and your work is going to be published under the reputation of the journals in itself. So if the journal the journals are published and then people found that there are flaws, there are plagiarism, of course it will hurt the editor's reputation, and of course the journal as well, and we don't want that. So enforcers, and as in to check on plagiarism, to check on of course referencing goes in there as well, citation of references, whether it's correct or not, and yeah, so become those checking, making sure that the manuscript is ready to be publishable. Responsibilities. So what are the reviewer's responsibilities? Really, it is to assist the editorial team in decision making. Should this be published or not? So the main, I guess the main concern for an editor would be, can I publish this or not? And I need your help to make that decision. Okay, and to do that, it's not a matter of reading it and say, yep, published, yep, no, it's not. Okay, it has more work there, because it's not only just for assisting the editor team, but it's also for, again, for the author. Okay, so you do need to provide critical, constructive, and concrete comments and suggestions, even though you find some flaws or it's not publishable, it requires major revision. So you feel that, you know what, I'm going to reject this. So even with rejection, it's not a matter of reject and that's it. You still have, as a reviewer, you still have to provide comments and suggestions, because the rejection will go back to the author. And of course, if you put yourself as an author, you would like to know, where did I go wrong, right? Where did I go wrong? How can I better improve this? I would like to try again. So it's not like we want the author to give it back and toss it into the rubbish bin. We don't want that. There must be something in that paper that is quite, is good. Okay, so we need to help them in that sense where, okay, unfortunately, we have to reject it now, but please improve it this way and get back to us, maybe something like that. Okay, so you do have to give those kind of attitude towards the authors. Okay, trying not to be harsh, I guess. You do need to ensure as a reviewer that the research is interesting, of course it's relevant, and the research is well executed. Okay, and this is quite interesting, where the reviewer guides the direction of knowledge creation. So it sounds like a very, very big responsibility for one person to directly create or help create knowledge. But it would probably benefit the author in itself, because sometimes as a new writer, you would want to know, what am I going to get myself into, right? And so you would like to have different styles and different way to show your knowledge, creative way, innovative way to speak out to your knowledge, to your research. So it's either from how you present your writing style, or how you I guess move about on your research study. Okay, so you are there to guide them, but not really to give directives or instructions on how to better it. Responses of a reviewer. So what are the expected responses of a reviewer? So when you are asked to review and you read those papers, what are you to respond to? So what are you to report? Okay, so you do need to detail out the strength and the weaknesses. Okay, what's the strength of this paper, and what's the weaknesses? Please point out major and minor issues. So what are the major issues? Perhaps you have found invalid research methodology, okay, or you have found a citation missing. That can be considered major because that can fall under plagiarism sometimes. Okay, and of course the minor issues, looking at the language, the structure on how you structure your sentences, your paragraphs, and so on. Within your report as well as a reviewer, you may have to indicate any fatal flaws that they have. So maybe you have what do you call it? The paper that you're reviewing is similar to a paper that was recently published. So that's really a red flag there. So you do have to indicate to the editors of that. Okay. So sometimes these flaws are unintentional. Okay. So you just have to investigate through the author with that. And of course, correctable issues. So maybe there was missing step in their methodology or something that they need to fix. Okay, and again, provide concrete and actionable advice. So here, emphasizing on advice really, and of course, not to criticize or even request for changes that indicates your personal preference. So that's really a big no-no when it comes to reviewers. You are not to judge, you are not to criticize, and of course, just because it's your personal preference, you request for change. And of course, reactions. Suggestions on emotional tones of reviewers' responses. I think it takes skills to actually write comments on a reviewer, just to make sure that you don't sound so harsh or you don't hurt anyone's feelings, especially, of course, the author. So you do have to be honest, but in a more diplomatic way or more tactful way to say, this is either it's plagiarism or something, yeah. So you do need to be tactful in your how you're going to address that, as opposed to just having a comment in saying, this is plagiarized, those kind of things. So having to check even. Be constructive, of course. I don't know how many times I have to emphasize that on constructivism. And then be developmental. And I feel personally, I think as a reviewer, you do have that intention of, I want to help you, right? And that attitude of, I'd like to help, help me to help you. So you do want to ask questions like, oh, where were you thinking to have this? I couldn't understand what you were, discussing. Please rephrase, or those kind of things. So you have the intention of helping them in order to develop them further. So you don't want to intimidate them and shy away from this publication world. So you do want to help with that. And of course, be kind and show empathy. And I think this is really important as a reviewer, because you yourself have been in that position as a writer where something sparked your interest and you want to go ahead and do a paper, do a research and write a paper, and you want to show the world that you've come up with the brilliant research and it works, either with your students or something, and it works. And you spend so much time and effort in writing the paper and going through your research and all that. And then all of a sudden, a reviewer just shuts you down like that. So you kind of feel demotivated. And I feel that this isn't supposed to be. I think I have not only myself, but as well my colleagues would be so depressed and so down, thinking that their paper was rejected, when they actually really feel that, my research is brilliant. So in a way, developing, helping them to develop further. So instead of that, just having that acknowledgement or that empathy feeling of, this author really worked hard on it, and I don't want to demotivate them so much. So I do want to help them further. I want to help them develop further and be accustomed to the world of publishing. Okay, so be kind and show empathy, right? And of course, as a reviewer, you do need to remember that it is all about the paper. It's all about the author. It's not about us. It's not time for us, the reviewer, to show off, yeah, our brilliant minds and all that. It's to show our brilliant minds in the sense that we are helping. Yeah, through assisting and through helping, that's how we show how brilliant we are and how we can actually contribute to all this. Okay. Sorry, I am not as interactive as Dr. Wan. I am unable to call out anyone's name, unfortunately, because I only know a few, not all. But I mean, if you do have any queries or anything, please, I don't mind being interrupted. Right, so I guess I'll just move on to the final R, okay, respect. And I think coming back to what I've just said, respect. So it's that karma feeling. I think I get this as well, not only from reviewing, but even as an assessor for my students or being an internal assessor, review or assess unto others as you would have them review unto you. So this karma thing really gets to me, you know. So I feel that if I am harsh, nanti I will get some harshness as well. So I don't, that's my biggest fear when it comes to reviewing or assessing other people's work. And I think you as an educator, you already have that automatic trait in you that you are there to help, right? So review unto others as you would have them review unto you. And I think that this saying is like my biggest notes. I have it right on my forehead when it comes to reviewing, okay? So you do need to show respect to the journal and its editorial team. So once they invite you, it just means you are in their team. You do have to help them and respect in a sense that respect their timeline. I think that's most important. So so when Dr. Azlin email and say, we need you to review this by this date, submit this by this date, you really have to think, can you do it or not? Yeah. Don't just accept blindly and say, yeah, sure. And then after that, oh, Dr. Azlin, I need an extension. I am not able to review this on time. And you do know that editorial team members also have their own timeline. So when they are going to be published, when it's going to be finalized, so on and so forth. So you do have to respect that sense. And if you are unable to do it, you are committed to other things, then please, I guess, diplomatically reject. Okay, so then Dr. Azlin's team can quickly find another reviewer rather than you leaving them hanging. You know, is she going to do it or not? Is he going to do it or not? You know, so it can give them more time and of course meet their timeline. Yeah. So when it comes to respecting the journal's editorial team, the timeline, and as well as how you structure the feedback. So making sure that your feedback or your report, yeah, is as concise and easy for them to understand. You don't want them to be leaving like, what is Suciyati saying? Is this a rejection or not? What is what are this report trying to say? Does she want this, or what are her comments? You know, those kind of things. So you do need to make, I guess, their work easier, and having that, I guess, play onto that trust that they have given you. On your expertise and your skills and your capabilities as a reviewer. And of course, show respect to the research and the author themselves. So again, looking at the research in itself and finding ways or suggesting ways on how you can improve the research, and of course, improve the author's writing skills, perhaps, okay? Yeah, having that respect to the author, knowing that, you know, they've worked really hard for this. No one has, I don't think so, has written a paper for a journal overnight. I don't know who has, but if you have done, I mean, that's a really skill work. So time and effort has been invested in this. So you do have to respect that. Okay. All right. So I'll move on to the reviewing process. I guess just for sharing to everyone, if you you know, from the beginning till now, maybe you think, okay, yeah, being a reviewer is not so bad. Maybe I can try. Okay. I'll wait for that email from Dr. Azlin if I am invited as a reviewer. So then you do have to know, okay, so what's the reviewing process? What is expected of me? So if I am a reviewer, what is expected of me? How do I give suggestions and how do I give constructive feedback? Okay, how would it look like? So it does differ from journal to journal, and I think we've seen the peer review process. It's quite straightforward. You submit article, the editor first review or filters out whether it is ideal for the journal or the book in itself. Is it does it follow the objectives? Is it within the theme of the journal? Okay, so if it's not, then it's being rejected. Okay, so if it's being rejected by the editor, you don't have to be alarmed, because it doesn't mean that your paper is that bad. It just means that it's not within the scope of the journal in itself. So it is either out of the theme, out of the topic, or out of the objectives and aims of the journal. Okay, but what you have to be concerned is when it gets back from the review. Okay, so once the editor filters it out and find that some articles are useful for the book, it follows the theme and objectives and all that. So the editor will then send to reviewers, okay? And then the reviewers will make recommendations. The recommendations of either to reject, minor revisions, or major revisions. Okay, so with no revisions at all, I guess the paper is good as it is from the reviewer's point of view, and of course that article will be accepted and published. If it's with minor revisions, then it goes through that cycle where it goes back to the author, revise it, and brings back again to the editor. And even sometimes if it's a major one or an extensive revisions, it will require another peer review. Okay. And the types of review. So I'll just quickly skim through this one with the types of reviewing. Again, different journals will apply different types of review. Either it's anonymous or double anonymous or open review. So I guess anonymous, it was once called single-blinded and double-blinded. So single-blinded meaning the reviewers know the authors, but the authors don't know the reviewers. It's just one way. And then double is that both reviewers don't know who the author is, and the author don't know who the reviewers are. And usually journals do imply the double anonymity. Okay, and of course it does have its benefits and drawbacks on all that, but yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of if the reviewer is, you know, comfortable or not, and being aware. Another, an open review, which quite rare that I've stumbled upon in journals, is that the journal, the editors would inform the author, both author and reviewer, that their reviews are being published. Okay, so the journals would feel that this is the work of transparency. So being transparent to the public as well, that the review are being publicly shown. And then sometimes reviewers would fear, or I guess being not comfortable, you know, and when one of the drawbacks would be the reviewer is being ingenuine in a way, because they know that their review would be, their review would be seen Yeah, so they would cause some fear or the consequences for them, so they don't review it properly, maybe. Okay, those are just identified drawbacks, but of course it really comes back to you as a reviewer, regardless of these types of review, whether it's single or double or even open review. Once you have accustomed yourself with the reviewing process and matter, so you automatically just become genuine in your work as a reviewer. Another I found that some journals are practicing is the collaborative peer review. So I'm not sure if this is new to someone, but the collaborative peer review is that the editors will nominate a team of people to work together to undertake the review. And this can actually be quite time consuming, even though it may help, but it may be time consuming for one. And that if for the author and the reviewer themselves, because they have to work with, you know, 2 or more reviewers together, and they have to come up with a unified report. So it would be quite tricky and a challenge, because of course one reviewer would have a different perspective or different comments and from the other. So it's kind of hard to find a unified opinions, right? And also one good thing about this collaborative peer review is, especially for like junior or developing researchers who are new to or trying to put their feet in the water for publication. So collaborative would be helpful for them, where reviewers, you know, sit down with them and talk about how they can improve their paper, how it can reach to a publishable standard, those kind. So personally, when I started writing a paper and publishing a paper, the journal that I submitted to was actually a collaborative peer review. So it was quite interesting process where the editor, oh sorry, not the editor, but the reviewer sit down with me, and it's a long process though, and it's really time consuming. So we sit together reading through, and then, but it does have that live feedback in a way. So when the reviewer don't understand what I was trying to convey here, it would be asked directly and I can answer it directly, those kind of things. So at that time I was, you know, just entering the publication or the, you know, publishing paper arena. So to me that really helped. And I think that's when I understood how the reviewing process was. Because the reviewer was also helpful and telling me why I shouldn't say this, why I shouldn't say that, you know, and all those you know, characteristics in paper. So that was good. But again, like I said, it would be time consuming for one, and not only for the reviewer, but perhaps for the author itself. But that seems very interesting type of reviewing. Right. So now reviewing guidelines. So when you are reviewing, so what do you actually look for here, and how do you know, come up with these report that you have to send to the editors? Depending on the journals, some follow an informal structure and some follow a formal structure. So whereby informal is just the editors saying, yep, here's the paper, please review it. And the editors are just depending on the analysis of merits of that reviewer, okay? So if that happens, then you have to think, oh, okay, what am I to write? What should I look for? And so on. Some journals would provide you a template or a form, and it has specific questions that you have to address, okay? So that's good as well. But then commonly, whether it's informal or formal structure, the editors would actually require a report from you, all right? So reviewing guidelines, how do we Well, how do we start to review? What do we do? Okay, it actually requires a couple of reading time. Okay, and those reading times actually have its own purpose. Right? So I've just compressed it. There's actually there's actually 5 steps, but I've compressed it to the first read through, the second read through, and then your report. How to structure your report, especially if you are given an informal structure. Okay, so the first read through is you're supposed to just skim reading. Okay, you're just to skim read to gather initial impression of that paper. How's this paper? Can we accept it? Can we reject it? If we do reject it, what am I going to say? If we do accept it, what are the things that I can improve on? Okay. So, and also to consider whether the main question was addressed and relevant. Okay. So again, this is like a second stage of filtering. So it is within the theme of the journal. Okay, but let's scrutinize it further and see whether it is, the main question or the main introduction objective is actually relevant. Okay. And then here is where, when you skim through, you spot any major flaws. Okay, so major flaws, looking at perhaps the validity or the reliability of the methodology or theory even. Okay, so maybe there were misconception or misunderstanding or even a misinterpretation of a theory. Okay, so that would be a major flaw. And once you conclude the first reading, okay, so once you conclude the first reading, that's the first half of your report. So perhaps write down 2 paragraphs, yeah, to summarize by stating the main question. Was it addressed? Was the goal being addressed? So you need to summarize that, their approaches, and looking at the conclusion of the paper. So I think mentioned there, when you read the introduction, you focus on the introduction and then go to the conclusion to have that impression whether is the paper good enough, or the research was interesting. And then your second paragraph would provide conceptual overview of the contribution of the research. How does this research contribute? Okay. And of course, you should be able to take a position of whether to accept or reject the paper in principle already here. Okay, so it doesn't mean the first reading, when you do your first reading, it doesn't mean that you have finalized your decision to accept or reject. You still have to do your second reading before you can confirm whether the paper is accept or reject. So it's just a matter of in principle. Okay, so the initial impression. And then we move on to the second reading. So the second reading is really a very thorough reading this time, okay? Because your second reading should provide assistance in preparing your manuscript for publication. So of course, when you have decided in principle that this is acceptable, now thinking, how can I make this better? How can I make this publishable? Okay, so you do have to keep in mind the author's construction of arguments, their clarity of language and content. Okay? And then it does require thorough reading section by section. Okay, so to ensure that each section covers the functions of that particular section. So for example, like in an introduction, does it really introduce, give this, give that, the methodology? Okay, I'll go through that later on. And then of course here, you do need to have that checking of list of references. Okay, giving that red flag if there are any plagiarism and so on. That's really, really thorough reading this time. Okay, there are some guidelines in the literature that mention you have to prepare yourself before the second reading. So when they meant prepare yourself is all those questions that you're going to have while you're reading. So while you're reading, you have to be aware of the either the functionalities or what is expected in a particular section and all that. Okay, so here I'll just quickly go through section by section guidance when you're doing your second reading. So looking at the first section, an introduction, you want to know whether it's well written or not, okay? And how do you know whether it's well written? So it does, the introduction should set out the argument, okay? It should summarize recent research related to your topic or to the topic, sorry. Highlight any gaps in the understanding or if there are any conflicts. And then it establishes its originality of the research, okay, by demonstrating the need for the investigation or the problem statement of the topic area. And then it does it overall, the introduction, does it give a clear idea of the target readership and why the research was carried out, so the originality and the topicality of the manuscript. Okay. And then we move on to the methodology section. So making sure that the methodology section has mentioned replicable research. It has repeatable methods. So replicable, some really bear in mind that is the research being able to can the research be replicable by other research if they want to do this, probably in a different context, okay? And then repeatable, carrying out the reliability and the validity of the methodology, okay? And robust, okay? Robust research, does it have enough data points to make sure that the data is reliable, okay? And the data is valid, and so on. And of course, best practices. So were they following standard guidelines? So looking at maybe ethical issues as well. Was ethical concerns being maintained and being addressed? So we do have to check that as well in the methodology. My number 3 is missing. My number 3 is supposed to be results and discussion. So results and discussion is making sure that the author is able to tell a coherent story. So what had happened? What did they discover? What have you confirmed? Okay. So the results and discussion section should have those kind of coherency in their story. Okay. So from the introduction all the way down, and then with the results as well. So you do have to point out what are the information that is gathered and what did they do with the results in it. So you want to make sure that they're not just showing the results, but then they did not discuss it. Okay, so it needs to have that coherency. Okay, and then of course conclusions. So when we're looking at conclusions, this section should be no more than a few paragraphs. The conclusion should reflect upon the aims, of course. So what you have started, you have to finish it, right, properly, whether it was achieved or not. And if the conclusions are not evidence-based, is it appropriate for them to rewrite? Okay, is it appropriate for the reviewer to ask to rewrite or not? So we do have to seek confirmation from the author. Why is the conclusion as such, okay, if it comes to that matter. And then looking at information gathered. So here, a reviewer's task is also to make sure the images, graphs, and data tables are tallied. Okay, so the reasons are plausible. So to check whether there are no errors in data gathering, the trends you can see to support the discussion and as well as the conclusion. Again, data, is it sufficient? And then here also is very important that you need to check whether the images have been edited or have they been manipulated in some way. Okay, and if as a writer, if you do have to edit a graph or something, you do have to indicate in your writing, okay, the reasons or what was being edited. But of course, best to avoid that. List of references. Okay, I think for list of references, of course, I guess as iterated by Dr. Wan this morning, you do have to check with the journals which references they are accustomed to. So whether it's APA, Chicago, right? So you do have to make sure the accuracy, of course, formatting wise, did they follow the conventions of that particular references and all that. And then adequacy, are arguments well supported? Now, there's always this argument that more is better when it comes to referencing, but there are also arguments that, you know, quantity is not all that when it comes to references. It's a matter of, are your arguments well supported? Okay, did you leave any citation behind whereby you accidentally proclaim that it is yours, as opposed to, you know, you forgot to cite? So that is the most important, rather than, you know, having so many references, but then it doesn't function well, or it doesn't suit well with your paper, right? So that adequacy is always debatable, but the main question there, that as an author, as a writer, is that, are your arguments well supported? Okay, and of course that balance. Okay, so you do have to give that balance of either recognition of your initial discoveries and your related work that leads to the paper. So even though it is, say it was your idea, you can actually claim that it was your idea. And of course there are, and then there are some ideas that was being supported by other writers or citations. Okay, so it's that balance as well. So you don't have like it doesn't have to be like every single sentences, every single word you are cited. You are allowed to have your own opinion in your own writing, of course. And of course, plagiarism. You do have to check on plagiarism, and usually this happens earlier in the stage, even in your first initial reading. Perhaps if it's a major plagiarism, you should already raise a flag here. Okay, so to identify, perhaps you have read, you know, this paper somewhere, so it is a really similar paper. So how do you address that? Here, usually you just have to mention to the editors that, oh, it seems that, you know, this paper is being published somewhere, so we need to double check with the author. Yeah, what happened here? Because sometimes, as I mentioned, it can be unintentional. Okay, it's perhaps the way they write seems to be, I don't know, replicable. So that's where the reviewers would assist on how they can differentiate their paper with that particular similar paper. Okay, and of course, suspected concern, where you suspect that there is plagiarism, like a whole chunk of words, paragraphs is just being derived from others. So we do need to inform the editors here and see what can be done. Okay, but of course, editors' decision would just mainly be rejection at this point when it's a major plagiarism, unfortunately. But it would be really good to just consult the author and ask them, you know, what is it? Is this intentional or not, or what happened? This kind of thing. It would be good just to help them further. Okay. And of course, there are further details on information on reviewing section by section, which I think I've missed out quite a lot. I've just summarized it. But what I found really helpful is from Griffin and Bazak, as well as from Wiley, Wiley has given a step-by-step guide to reviewing a manuscript, and I find that quite helpful to have in mind. So I've just given the link there and the paper there as well. Full details of Griffin and Bazak would be in my reference list. I'll show you later on. And then once you have done your reading, you read through and you have pinpoint and identified some major flaws or some minor issues that needs to be addressed by the author before it can be published. You're to structure your report. Okay, and your report again, really depending on the journal, the editors, whether they have given you a template or not. Right. So first of all, the structuring the report, you are to provide constructive feedback to the authors, because their papers are going to be given back and they're going to fix it. Okay, they're going to fix it before it's going to be published by the editors. So you do need to give as much information and as much as feedback as possible to assist the author to be able to do so in a timely manner as well. Because bear in mind, when after reviewing and with revisions, the author needs to work quite fast as well, so that they can be in time, yeah, for publication, finalizing for publication. So of course, give positive feedback. Who doesn't love positive feedback, right? So giving them positive feedback first, just to enlighten the mood of the authors first, because of that excitement, right? So their paper's been accepted and being reviewed, and then they've been giving it back. So have a positive feedback first to lighten up the mood. And then briefly summarize what the paper is about and what the findings are. So in a way, the author know whether you have understood their paper or not. So it's like saying the author said this, and then you're just reiterating. So from what I have understood, this is what your paper is about. Okay, so to make sure that you're on the same level with the author, and the author is thinking, yep, that's what I mentioned. Okay, so we have to set that base first. And then try to put the findings of the paper into the context of the existing literature and current knowledge. So here is perhaps looking at suggestions for further reading maybe, or looking into showing them that, you know, it can be improved further if you look into these literature, or even as you are the expert member of the field, so you can share out your current knowledge of that as well. Indicate the significance of the work, okay, whether it's original or it's based to confirm. And then, of course, indicate the strengths and the quality of that work as well. And then you state any major flaws or weaknesses that you want to take note or on any special considerations, okay? So so you can mention that it is a major flaw, but it is easily fixed. Okay, so it is a weakness, so this is how we can fix it. So, and then once you have summarized it in your report, then you have to highlight the major issues that they need to address. Okay, so are there any major flaws? And then you have to state the severity of it and how it impacted the paper, okay, and how they can fix it. Especially when it comes to, you know, there are similar work that has been published. Perhaps the author doesn't know this, so how can we help them, okay, to fix this? And then was their evidence strongly presented? Okay, have they cited all relevant work in it? Was there any contradiction? Okay, so you do need to address that. If there are major revisions required, you do have to indicate clearly what they are, okay? So you cannot just comment major revisions needed. That's not quite helpful, is it? You have to indicate where, okay? And of course, also how, if you can, right? And then were there any presentational problems in terms of figures or the tables, or maybe even the language? It was quite hard to understand, or maybe the structure of it as well. And then, of course, ethical issues. Okay, we do have to address ethical issues, if any. And if they are, then you do have to disclose this to the editors, okay, and of course confidentially. Lastly, the minor issues to be addressed, okay. Are there places where meaning is ambiguous? So I guess this can help when you are summarizing the whole paper. So when the review is misunderstood what you have, what you are meaning to say, then that's where the ambiguous happens. And as an author, that's where you have to correct this, okay. And references cited, so that becomes a minor issue. So I guess that's formatting issues as well. Are there any factual or numerical or unit errors? So maybe there's a miscalculation, again, theory, misinterpretation of different theories, okay? That can be minor issues as well. Tables, graphs, they need to be correctly labeled, okay? And if there are some tables, graphs that are not labeled correctly, you do have to mention or pinpoint which one, okay? If it's all, then of course you just have to mention all, okay? And then when in your report, so you have that summary, you have major issues addressed and minor issues addressed, and then it comes to recommendation. So as I mentioned, the editors would like to have a clear recommendation of this, whether to accept or not. So you can write an extensive report and say reject, because that report would be given to the author, and that's how the author can improve, okay, from your comments and all. But then the recommendation section sometimes is a separate section, and this is where it assists the editors in their decision making. So one, recommending acceptance. So just very briefly giving details why it should be accepted, okay? So maybe because it's a new innovative research that can contribute to the field further. Is there any areas that can or should be improved? And then just, I guess, a cursory remark like, great, accept. You know, you do have to mention that accept clearly so that editors know, right, that it is clearly being accepted. But don't just leave it as great accept, okay? You do have to bring in those 2 points as well, why, and of course, if there is anything that can be improved. Okay, so it's either language-wise, or there are some typos, or just a better proofreading maybe, okay? Those kind of remarks. And then rejection, when you are recommending them to reject. Here, you do have to state very, very clearly in your review, which is the previous one, when you mention the major flaws, right, or the major issues, those need to be clearly stated, okay? So you cannot just say, oh, this is a great paper, you know, when it comes to doing section, but then in your recommendation, you're stating that you want to reject it, okay? So I guess in a way, I'm saying that your comments from your papers must tally, okay? They must tally. So even so, you have decided to reject it, you do still have to give constructive criticism. So that's why it requires you to have that second reading to read through further. Because sometimes in the first reading, you're just like, oh, no, this paper is not good enough, or, you know, those kind of things. And that's not sufficient. You need to go through it further. That's why the importance of that second reading, and to go section by section thoroughly. And then that's where you will give constructive criticisms. And this also helps those developing researchers to improve their work, okay? So like I said, if it's a matter of rejection, then you cannot just reject just like that. You have to tell them what's wrong with their paper and how to improve it. And then, of course, explain to the editor why you felt the manuscript should not be published. So if it's really a plagiarism issue, then you do have to mention that. And of course, then it would be the decision of the editor on what to do with it. If it's a really major plagiarism, then of course, editors have no choice but to reject it and just to inform the author of their decision. But if it's fixable, then the editors can tell the author that unfortunately it's rejected, but with these comments from the reviewers, perhaps this can help you better improve and maybe you can resubmit. Okay, so it is up to the discretion of the editors, and then that's where the reviewers come in to help editors to make that kind of decision. Okay. And then recommending revision. So when you're recommending for revision, you do have to not only have editors in mind, but you do have to have authors in mind as well to help them improve, because it's going to be sent back to them. They have to fix it and then send it back. So if you don't help them in that stage, then you're just leaving the authors out to dry and just wondering, how can I improve this? How, so of course, state-specific changes you feel need to be made, making sure that your comments are clear, and then perhaps provide options to improve. Okay, suggesting ways. Again, as I mentioned, maybe showing them other literatures, okay, to help them strengthen up their arguments. Say, oh, maybe this literature can help you, this author can help you in your field, so on and so forth. Okay. Right. So tips for effective reviewing. And as mentioned earlier on, there are so many tips as an effective reviewing. And if you review, quite a number of times, there are things that you take note. I should do this next time, or I should do that next time. And you think, oh, this seems to work. I'll keep doing that, those kind of things. So being a reviewer does take time, and being a good reviewer takes time and cognitive effort as well. It is somewhat of a skill for you to have as well for being a reviewer. Okay, so I guess tips for effective reviewing, and as usually, reviewer is like a side job. You're being invited to do this, and you do want to do it well. So set aside a specific block of time to review, because not only that you are reading, just I guess reading for your own pleasure is different to when you are reading with the intention of helping an author. All right, so you do need to set that specific block to read. And as I mentioned previously, it's not a first reading. Okay, it requires you to read with second reading, or sometimes even third reading. I've just mentioned about two sessions of reading. Okay, so you do need to organize your review report as well in a logical manner with minimum errors. Especially if you are given a formal structure, so you're given a template, you do need to study beforehand that template. What is the editors asking you to address? So you have to keep that in mind before you're reading. Okay, and then to ensure your comments convey the correct tone to the author. So you have the intention of helping the author. So you don't want to come out as being harsh, or to come out being not intimidating, but you don't want to sound like you are judging them or you are assessing them. Okay. And I think number your comments for easy reference, especially when you're not giving, you're not given a template. So you're just having your own report. So you do number your comments on the paper, and then tally it with your comments. That seems to be quite helpful for not only authors but editors as well. And can't emphasize any further, but when you're reviewing, you have to focus on the research. You have to put your personal preference aside and just focus on the research. And one also quite helpful is reading others' reviewers and then editors' comments from others. So if you have published a number of papers and you've got reviewers back, right? just reading the reviewers' comments can also give you that learning experience. So in my personal experience, as a proofreader, researchers or authors, they actually give, once their paper is being reviewed by the journal being reviewed, they actually send their paper to me as a proofreader to check whether they have answered the reviewer concerns or what the reviewer has come up with. So I take that opportunity to actually read the reviewers and in a way study how the reviewers actually commented, their style, how they comment and all that. So I take that in. So if you do have that opportunity, I mean, that's also good. And also have in mind, sometimes as well, journals, they would, especially when it comes to more than one reviewer, when they practice more than one reviewer. So the reviewer, the first reviewer, say, their comment stays in that paper. So then you are able to also read on those reviewers as well. So yeah, to me that was well, yeah, given the opportunity that I have, I was able to read other reviewers and I was able to study the comments, so how their style and what works and what doesn't work. Yeah, so I have reached my conclusion. Yeah, hopefully everyone's still there and not still okay. Rather long, and I'm sorry. I hope it's helpful though. So as a conclusion, and also based on my experience being a reviewer, proofreader, editor as well, it doesn't just benefit the reviewer, but it benefits, sorry, the reviewee, but it does benefit as a reviewer as well. So I learned so much. Thank you. I learned so much from reviewing and just reading other people's work as well. And that comes with your critical thinking. It does enhance your critical thinking, because not only you're reading about other ventures of research being done by other people, the innovative ideas, the creative minds of others, but it's also the writing skills, the variety of writing skills that exists, and then you're just immersed in that. And to me, that's such a privilege and such an honor to have. And of course, you learn from that as well. So it is a learning experience for me, different ways, different styles, and then you learn from the research. So I think in my experiences also as a reviewer, I find like some people were quite innovative in the way of their research, and it just motivated me to say, oh, I think I could do this with my students too, you know. So and as a reviewer, it is, you are there as a first hand, you know, is a first hand that a paper, a developing paper that is soon to be published, before it gets, you know, really out there, you have the privilege of accessing it first, reading it first, you know, those kind of feeling. So it is a learning experience and a learning privilege too. And then it does assist your field to advance further. So again, like I mentioned, I've read a paper where I find, you know, the research methodology was brilliant. And then there was similarities in the problem. So I was like, oh yeah, my students are like that too. I'm facing that problem too. So perhaps maybe I can do this in my field. So again, it increases the volume of that particular subject matter, that particular research matter. So that again assists your field to advance further. And I think I mentioned, you know, career prospects. So it does help you build up your reputation, I guess. So when people recognize your expertise and recognize your capabilities and skills in reviewing, and then authors also find that appreciative, you know, yeah, the authors would actually appreciate what you have done, because you help them to excel, and you help them to learn how to better improve their writing, not only for that particular paper, but they will actually expect that later, and they have that in mind, like, oh, I should not do this, I should have these tips in mind from other reviewers, so on and so forth. And I would like to share with you that I found information from Elsevier and AMS Review. So AMS Review is from the Griffin and Bazat, whereby they mentioned that reviewers are actually scarce at the moment. So reviewers are in high demand. A lot of journals are finding it quite difficult for reviewers to accept their invitation. Okay, so if you are being, if you are invited as a reviewer, I mean, by all means, be, what do you call that? Just be happy to invite and just venture into the journey of being a reviewer and see whether it's in it for you and all that. So I guess in the academic world, especially, I mean, knowing from Elsevier, Science Direct, and even AMS Review, they are struggling to find reviewers. So, so imagine the high demand of reviewers out there. And then also another paper literature that I've read is that journals are now venturing to reviewing training. So I think this is what CPLT is intending to do, having to invite more, or having accessible to reviewers, right? So one of ways that they mention is that they offer reviewer training. Okay, so I guess what they have found in their study is that a lot of reviewers, or a lot of invitations were rejected because people feel that they don't know how to review, they don't know what's expected of them, what do they have to do, so it's not clear. So they just tend to just reject, thinking, oh, it's not for me, or thinking, oh, I'm not that much of an expert yet, so I don't think I am ready, or I am just to be a reviewer. Okay, so they tend to, I guess, put themselves down. But actually, if you really think the way that it is a learning experience, it boosts your career prospects, give it a go. I'm like promoting becoming a reviewer here, but it is as a personal experience as well. It is a very good learning experience, and quite privileged, and I really enjoy it, reading it. And I guess what makes me happy as well is that, thinking that I am getting firsthand, first touch of a paper that's going to be published, and then I am contributing something to that, and that is really like a bonus, a privilege rather, for me. Okay. Right, so as promised, my references, these are the main ones that I look into, and I think Wiley, the step-by-step guide to reviewing, that was really, really helpful for me, especially, when reviewers ask to just review and not giving you a template. So you're just thinking, oh, what is it that I have to review? What do I look into? How do I give constructive feedback? How do I comment? And so on and so forth. So the step really gives a thorough on each section, especially the sections. I think it's thoroughly shown there. So what I've done now, I was just summarized it for you this morning. And yeah, Griffin and Bazak from AMS Review, that one was also quite helpful. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's all from me. I don't know if there were any other questions or anything that you'd like me to reiterate. I'll be happy to do so.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone finds it useful.
Very much useful, Haji Suciyati. I think we can open for Q&A session. Okay, if anyone has any questions to the both panels actually, so we can ask whether Dr. Wan or Haji Suciyati to answer the questions. So please, you may on your mic.
Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Terima kasih Dr. Wan dengan Haji Suciyati ya. Soalan saya, the question goes to Haja Suci. Just now you mentioned about in reviewing the paper, there is a tendency we must avoid criticizing. Okay, but but I believe that in order to give a constructive comment to the author, I mean, criticizing is a part of the giving of the constructive comment. How do we actually differentiate? This is criticizing, this is constructive. So because I believe it is a mix. When you want to give a constructive comment, we have to criticize somehow. So can you please advise me? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad, for the question. Yeah, it is. There is a fine line actually when it comes to constructive and criticism, and that fine line lies in your language. All right. So the way the use of your language would then be a major difference between whether you are criticizing it or whether you are giving constructive criticism. Okay, so even constructive, you still have that constructive criticism or constructive comments, right? So it's the language really that plays a role, and that actually takes practice and takes skills. So and sometimes one can say, oh, I cannot help it. It's the way how I say it, or it's the way I write it. So that's where even in the readings, it says it takes practice and it takes cognitive effort, thinking that and even mentioning, with the comments of, let's see what you can say. Perhaps you can say it's that diplomatic use of language that we need to adhere to or practice. So being criticized, words such as just a major, say, your research, say you found a flaw, right? So you can say, oh, your research has flaw, all right? As opposed to, there were flaws identified in your research. However, this is how you can avoid so on and so forth. So I guess it's the language that plays a role, and to differentiate whether it is criticism or if it's constructive. Is that clear, Dr. Muhammad? Am I answering your question?
Yes. Actually, the language matters, lah.
Yeah, definitely. It's the language that matters, and it's the language that provides, differentiate. So as I mentioned, it is a fine line, but it's that language when you write that actually plays a role, whether it's a criticism or if it's a constructive criticism. So, I mean, in itself, the definition of constructive is that you are trying to construct or build a helping hand. And then criticism is always associated with negativity, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad, for the question.
All right, is there any other questions from the floor? Yes, please. Ada lagi yang lain? Jangan malu, jangan segan. Boleh tanya pada Haji Suciyati atau Dr. Wan. So you have this great opportunity to ask both speakers.
Madam Intan, I believe we also welcome questions through our WhatsApp if they have more questions later. And I welcome questions through WhatsApp, through emails.
Yeah, boleh. Another alternative to ask questions. So, Dr. Azli, maybe we can close the program, shall we?
Yes, point in time. But before that, can I say a few words?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Point Intan. Okay, Alhamdulillah. I would like to thank Haji Suciyati and Dr. Wan Irham for spending on time with us today. It is indeed very fruitful, whatever that you have shared with us. And we hope that with these sessions, there will be more sessions, CPLT workshop sessions in the future. And we hope this can become culture in our university or any educational institutions anywhere, that we have not only that we equip academicians as writers, but we also want to equip them as reviewers and also editorial boards, advisory boards, and so on. So Haji Suciyati all the way from Brunei. So it's very good to have you. We hope to see more of you in the future. And also Dr. Wan Irham, thank you again. Thank you for your time. And I hope everybody get as much information as you can. And you can start emailing us if you want to become our reviewer. We are always short of reviewers, as Haji Suciyati said. Feel free to email us at cplt@uitm.edu.my. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Azlin. Thank you also to Haji Suciyati and also Dr. Wan Irham. So with this, our program has come to an end. So congratulations to all participants. I believe that everyone did well today. And of course, it's indeed a very successful event with these two great speakers. And it's a great opportunity for us to gain knowledge. And also it's a great pleasure actually to have these two speakers with us today. So as the end of the session of the workshop for today, once again, congratulations everyone. So with that, let us close the program with photo session.
Sure.
So I need everyone to open up camera, so at least we can have some memory.
Pizza pergi jogging ke pagi tadi, Pizza?
Jogging.
Once again, I have to close.
Is everybody ready? I can screenshot in time, no problem.
Okay, boleh Dr. Azlin, please?
Okay. So semua okay ke? Senyum? Virtual smile, virtual smile.
Virtual smile.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, sekejap ya. 1. Okay. One more. Okay. 1, sorry. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Azlin and Intan. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
miss Brunei too.
Come here soon.
Inshallah.
InsyaAllah.
First time I try ambuyat dekat Brunei.
Of course.
Of course.
Haji Suciyati, is it okay if you stay back for a while? I would like
Sure.
to discuss. Sekejap ya.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, Assalamualaikum.
Okay, thank you, bye. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you so
Bye.
Bye-bye, Jazlin. Bye-bye,
Thank you,
Ajar.
everyone.
Till we meet again, Ajar.
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Dr. Wan.
Okay, welcome.